Welcome to Emergency Medicine Fellowship Match Advice, a new Google Hangout web series sponsored by Academic Life in Emergency Medicine and its editor-in-chief, someone who is fixing medical education one project at a time, Dr. Michelle Lin from UCSF. Hi, Michelle.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I know nothing about this simulation fellowship, so I'm here to learn to know how to advise my residents on what to do. Tell me, what do I do?
Yeah, I know nothing about sim fellowships either. We're here to host, and we're hosting a spin-off, World. This is EM Match Advice spin-off Fellowship Match Advice. We had such great success with EM Match Advice on Allium that we have our first spin-off. So we're looking for spin-off series success, right? Like much like the Jeffersons and Archie Bunker, Facts of Life, Different Strokes, Frasier and Cheers, we anticipate amazing spin-off success, and hopefully Michelle won't cancel us in season 1. So we're going to start the season off with simulation fellowships. This is EM Match Advice for simulation fellowships. And to offer their sage advice on matching to a sim fellowship, we have 3 outstanding panelists. Dr. Teresa Wu, T. Wu, my old buddy from residency, who is now the director of the Sim Curriculum and Ultrasound Fellowships at the University of Arizona, Phoenix. Hi, T. Wu.
Hi, everybody.
Dr. Demian Szyld, the medical director for the New York Simulation Center at NYU. Hello, Demian.
Hello, world.
And Dr. Sharon Griswold-Theodorson, the Division Director of Simulation in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Drexel University. Thanks for joining us, Sharon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I'm excited to get our new series up and running, and the first panelist that we're going to chat with is Dr. Wu from the University of Arizona. So, Teresa, let's just go broad strokes. Why would someone choose to do a sim fellowship?
It's a great question. With all of the fellowships that are available right now and all of the opportunities for our residents, it's sometimes very difficult to figure out what path to take in life. I really recommend that they consider something with advanced medical technologies like simulation, because it gives them the ability to really learn about themselves, learn some educational tools they can use to help others, and stay up to date on the most awesome advanced medical technologies that are out there.
Okay, yeah, it is a difficult decision, just sort of a priority to do a fellowship or not. And, we'll put up on the Allium website to go along with this a great article, an oldie but a goodie, from the SAM newsletter about 1 million years ago from the now chair of the University of Washington, Sue Stern. It's a great article on why one should choose to do a fellowship in general, and we'll make sure that we put that up online. But fellowships lead to special skills, and certainly a sim fellowship distinguishes you in academic emergency medicine from just a general medical education fellowship. So how does that happen? What special skills do you anticipate you'd get out of fellowship?
What's really neat with the residents who end up going into simulation fellowships is they are all problem solvers. They're forward thinkers who like to utilize resources and come up with creative ways to help patients in advanced medical technologies to use to improve education. So in a simulation fellowship, you're tying that all together in an interprofessional approach.
Okay, great. So what's the structure of a sim fellowship? Give me, is it a 1-year, is it a 2-year, do you get a master's, do you not? What are your options that are out there?
Yeah, that's a very common question for our residents who are applying to fellowships in simulation. Because of the new innovative approach that we have to simulation fellowships, some programs across the country are offering 1-year fellowships. Others are offering 2-year fellowships where you can combine your dreams and your hopes into a 2-year track where you can get a master's in education, you can combine it with an MBA, you can do an MPH with it. So there's lots of different tracks available depending on what you're looking for. Okay, great.
Yeah, I remember from my own fellowship, I did a version of a medical education fellowship, a faculty development fellowship back in the day. And it was a 1-year fellowship, and my regret was that I didn't stay for a 2nd year and get a master's in medical education. And I share that with my own fellows in our fellowship now. So I think that is an important consideration, one I look back on and I kind of regret having not done. So, are there any associations perhaps that one can go to kind of get general information about the state of sim fellowships across the country? Are there any collaborative partnerships among the sim fellowships?
What's neat about our group of simulation aficionados is that we run in similar circles and we have similar visions. So all of us are banding together to create a website where all of this education will be available to applicants in the near future. And you can partner up with pretty much anyone in simulation and medical industry, and there are people there to help you and to collaborate with you on your projects.
I could speak on this a little bit if that's okay. I'm as part of my role at the Society for Simulation in Healthcare, we've just launched an affinity group. So that's a group that's going to get together people that are interested in fellowships, master's programs, and certificate programs to, I think, fill that need for a centralized place. And I know Sharon's working on a similar kind of catalog that will go beyond the SAEM or the EMRA Match catalogs, which in the past have been really helpful. I also wanted to add a bit on some of the other discussion around the 2 years, because I got a chance to do a 2-year fellowship myself, and I mean, part of the thing about simulation is that although you mentioned it's a specialized area, it's still pretty broad, and for us emergency medicine people, that's our kind of pathologic sin is to keeping it broad. And so I think 2 years really allows you to have 1 year to get the general training and a year to specialize in what are going to be your main buckets. Is it patient safety? Is it procedural training? Are you an assessment person? What's your research interest? As well as doing a master. So my experience in the 2-year fellowship was that I had a full-time fellowship, a half-time master's, and a part-time clinical role. So you're pretty busy, but I think you get a lot out of it. And I guess like the age-old 3 versus 4-year program, I don't think you should compare people coming out of residency to those coming out of a 1-year program to those coming out of a 2-year program. I think we got to look about 4 or 5 years out of residency, which is where I'm sitting right now, and say, you know, where have people gotten? For example, currently we run a 1-year fellowship program where I work, and I think my advice to people is, sure, do the 1-year fellowship, get a job, over the next 3 years, do a master's, and then 5 years down the line, I think that's the fair comparison. So I think, summary, a lot of options, not quite centralized. Hopefully we'll be getting there in the next year or so.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd add to that as well, just for a second. I do think that we are struggling and really working hard to do the things that Teresa and Demian suggested. And one of the things that we're working on is to try to bring everybody together and give everybody that type of centralized information. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball as compared to the ultrasound fellowships and the critical care fellowships. And just with anything, I think everyone's options as far as where you go, what societies you join, can often depend on which memberships or which mentors you have access to, and we want to try to really break down those barriers. None of us want to duplicate effort. We really do want to work together, but I think that's part of the reason that we don't have it out there, is that all of us have had affiliations with particular societies, whether it be SSAM, the Society for Simulation in Healthcare, and again, like Teresa said, we all have our toes kind of in the same pool, but we really need to bond together and get even a little bit more organized for ourselves to be able to help applicants. And we really appreciate you guys doing this, because it'll really help, I think, to help point people in the right direction. So thanks again.
So I have a question real quick, which, like, since you are starting to centralize all of these resources together, do you have a general sense of how many of these fellowships exist in the U.S., just so I know what I can tell the residents? Like, are they applying to a total of 5 fellowships? Are you guys the only 3 fellowships out there? You know, what kind of numbers are we dealing with?
The last time I counted on the Society for Academic Emergency Medicine fellowship site, which is, to my knowledge, and chime in guys if you know something else that I don't, was the most centralized place that we had. And that was really, first started off certainly only as the emergency medicine fellowships, and then the VA has sponsored a lot of interdisciplinary fellowships. So now there are maybe 5 VA fellowships on there. So all in total there are about 30 fellowships listed on the SAM site, but I can tell you I know at least 10 that are not listed on the site. So they really are all over the country now, and it really depends on the practice environment where you want to be, and what you really want to get out of your fellowship, whether it is the 1 year, the 2 year, whether you want that master's degree. We certainly are very diverse as a group, I think, for now. And that's okay, because I think it gives our candidates a lot of options, but it also makes it a little bit more confusing to know what you're looking for. And that's why I think we need to get that information out there to everyone.
Yeah, I think That's my view too. And when we put out an interest call to see people who would want to join, we got about 60 people responding. So I think I'm with Sharon that there's probably, in one way, shape, or another, about 50 or so programs that people could choose from. And I'm sure, like in other subspecialties, like talks, for example, which doesn't go fully matched every year, there's going to be that lack of continuity. So, advice for the applicants: just because you see a fellowship that doesn't have a current trainee, I wouldn't discount it. There's just too many spots right now, and they're all very small programs. I would not take that I wouldn't apply the rules that you learned about residency match to fellowship situation.
And to echo those comments, some of the simulation fellowships that are being developed are created for the learner. So as the applicants come in and talk about the things that they want to accomplish in their fellowship, because we are such a new area of expertise, we can mold our fellowships to our applicants and our fellow for that year.
All right, well, great. I think this is just a reflection that the ACGME subspecialties that are credentialed, certainly they're going to have ACGME centralized lists because they are boarded, and I think the ones that aren't, they're going to be much more heterogeneous and to your point, have a lot more options for the learner, but that much harder to kind of get control of what those are out there. So Demian, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the nuts and bolts of the application process. So how does one apply for these fellowships? What's the timeline? When should you make your decisions? That sort of thing. Okay,
so I'll mostly speak about my experience as an applicant and then now as a fellowship director. And I hope nobody considers this to be authoritative or exhaustive. So as a resident, my strategy was to look around, call people, and then once I identified the program of interest, in my case was the Strata Simulation Fellowship at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, I made myself a point to do a 2-week elective. I think I would have wanted to do more, but the schedule didn't fit, and I talked to my director, and he said, yeah, come on up. And many of you might know Chuck Posner. He was at the time the fellowship director. So that really helped me get a sense of where I was going, but I think is a really good opportunity to learn more about simulation and not just have an application that says, oh, I like to teach, I like to play with dolls, or I'll give a moment there for the chuckle. I really like simulation, I'm really into procedures. I mean, I think that's going to be a limited and superficial application. The field is both broad and developed, and I think as an applicant you ought to get to know it a little bit better. So I think a visiting elective, if your program allows, or one at your own institution, would be a really good way to get to know a program. Then with regards to the application process, what we require is a CV and a letter of intent or a personal statement, as well as 3 letters of recommendation. We don't have much more of a standardized process around that, but we do have prerequisites that one should want to be a leader in healthcare simulation. And I should say to this, in this area too, that I'm actually involved in 2 different fellowships, along with Maureen Gang, who's the Associate Program Director and the Fellowship Director in Emergency Medicine at NYU. We run an Emergency Medicine Simulation Fellowship. At the Simulation Center at NYSIM, we also run a Simulation and Education Fellowship that goes beyond emergency medicine, has a little bit of a broader aperture, and looks at the medical school, the medical center, is interprofessional, and as I mentioned, is a little bit of a broader look. Both interesting, different experiences. The emergency medicine-based one has clinical work associated. The one in the Simulation Center does not. In emergency medicine, we'll only take emergency medicine applicants, of course, because they'll be junior faculty, whereas at the Simulation Center, that's not a requirement. It's about 60% time, and we work with the applicant, like Teresa said, to individualize what they're doing. So that's the application initially. I think most of us are screening letters of recommendation, as well as personal references and the CV, and then we're inviting folks to get themselves over to the Sim Center for interviews. All this is happening in the fall, and my preference is to have really try to have finalists and then offers out by December or early January, although you'll all find that that doesn't always happen. So another piece of advice for applicants or people coming out of residency, I'm interested to see if other people share this view, that the expectation that you'll have a job or a fellowship secured by January is off. Really, you should expect to be all sorted by about March or April and not sooner. At least that's been my experience. I'll put it out to others to see if they want to weigh in.
I don't know. I think that timeline has continued to move so far up. I feel really bad for this day and age applicant, and that, you know, our residents, by the time they're finishing their second year, they're already making their career path. And to me, the biggest access that we have as fellowship directors is our residency director community, and helping the residents get that information, pointing them in the right direction. And certainly for us, we use the same standard as Demian suggested with, you know, just why they'd want to do that with the letter of intent or statement and their CV. And it's really the letters of recommendation, you know, and talking to all of you as the residency champions who are going to really help make sure that we're the right fit for the candidate. But it's really coming to the center. They really do have to, I think, set foot in the door and make sure that it's the right fit for them, just like on the residency interview trail.
So what I'm hearing is a rolling timeline that generally has moved up, but there is no common deadline application. There's no common simulation collaborative community handshake, sort of a match date, because we're going to hear about that with ultrasound fellowships more and more. They're sort of the day they all find out. That's not yet the case for SIM.
Not yet the case. Not yet the case. Okay. Maybe we'll all band together at some point in time. Again, to make it better for the applicants is really what we want to do. Right now, there's just a dearth of information for our applicants, and that's really the biggest thing that we need to rectify. And again, like Demian mentioned, you know, one of our fellowships where candidates have the opportunity to, you know, certainly make the most money is if they are also working as junior faculty in the positions. And certainly our only issue in timeline is that we want to get someone on board so that they could start on time. So that credentialing process always takes like 4 months. So, you know, we really do like that lead time, but we wouldn't be opposed if we didn't have someone to filling someone at the last minute.
So it's basically like voting. You want to get out there early and do it often.
And similarly, the advice that we give to our even medical students who are interested in looking into emergency medicine and fellowships afterwards, and to our residents who are applying, is this is a business-minded world now. So if you get out there and promote yourself, meet people, and figure out where you fit in best, you're going to have the best chances for success.
So when you say like a rolling type acceptance, it definitely makes sense. Earlier the better. But let's say, you know, this is 2016, and you're advising graduating residents or those about to start their last year.
It's 2015.
I know. So in 2016, let's say, because right now we're kind of in the middle of the season, right? Is it really? Yeah. So we're in the middle of a season. But like, let's start a fresh season, right? A brand new season. When would be the ideal time for them to send in a cover letter, their CV, and maybe, you know, whatever number of letters of recs? Like, when is the idea? When would you say? Because you said things are moving up. Are we talking about July, September, January?
Senior year in high school.
No.
No, I would say early acting program from junior high. You know, you gotta
right. On the birth certificate. No, really. I think September, fall is a really good time. We ideally would like to have someone in place by December 1st every year. You know, but we're a little behind the 8 ball this year, but we hopefully will be able to take 2 fellows this year. You know, again, when it's a faculty-funded fellowship, there are differences as well, as opposed to what Mike pointed out with the ACGME fellowships, where you're strictly bound and tied to numbers set by the ACGME. If we find the right people, we might fill 2 spots this year. So again, I think everyone has that different flexibility in their own institution as well. And without reaching out to the fellowship director and finding out, or speaking to anyone really in the SIM community, because as Teresa said, we do actually all know each other, and we want to get people in the right fit too. So we'll point people in the right direction all the time.
You know, I asked the question of timeline. I mean, obviously, folks need to know what Michelle is asking, but you know, it has implications, right? If there's no match date, then you know, do you apply early enough to try to get a job such that you know that you need to apply for a master's degree, right? Because those master's degrees are going to have very clear deadlines. So if you don't have an embedded master's within your institution's fellowship, then you're applying for master's degrees for distance learning programs or online programs, and they're going to have different dates perhaps than what we're accustomed to in an academic hiring cycle in emergency medicine. And then one question I have for all three of you, you know, are any of your fellowships interviewing candidates either at ASAP or at the SIM meeting in early July if residents are attending that?
So having run 2 different types of fellowships, I previously directed our adult emergency ultrasound fellowship and our pediatric emergency ultrasound fellowship. I'll tell you, as someone who is really interested in making sure we find the right fit, that sometimes those informal interviews will happen very early on in this cycle that we have. So we are talking to people at ASAP, we're talking to people even before that at other conferences they're attending, and people are flying out to visit our center even during their second year of residency to see if it might be a good fit for them in the future.
Yeah, we take a different approach, and for us, we typically, as soon as we get an application, which we like to have it sometime before September, end of September, I'll get on the phone and have an initial phone screen because I really want to tailor, I want to know who's applying, I want to give them the best advice, and I want to prep them. And my take in general is that these folks are going to be our colleagues no matter where they train, so it's going to be beneficial if we get to know them. So just because they express some interest and then get another wonderful opportunity in Philadelphia or in Arizona or wherever, you know, I want to make sure that I know them. They're going to be the future leaders in our field, and so for me, I always tell people to call me, and I'm very happy to talk to them. So I encourage folks to do that.
All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit, and Sharon, I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of thinking about competition for these fellowships, right? There, you know, there's a number of spots out there, but there's not an unlimited number of spots. So how does a residency applicant take their CV and their cover letter and that personal statement that is required by many of you and craft it in such a way that they appear competitive for your individual fellowship?
Well, I think, again, I think it's how each program defines what a competitive applicant is. We do want people in the fellowship who are going to go on and take the skill set and go on to lead in simulation. Now, whether that means they want to be a residency director, whether that means they want to run a simulation center, whether that means they want to be a patient safety officer in a large center, I think it's just really having some insight into what this training is going to do for you. When you really look at educational fellowships in general, you know, back in 1996 or so, maybe there were 7 in the whole country. That's because we were all following an apprenticeship model of education. Now we really know that there are other disciplines that we can learn from and draw on to improve our educational skills. And you know, that's certainly, we want to know whether, you know, an education fellowship is right for you, or whether a fellowship in simulation education is right for you. So, you know, certainly having this day and age of applicants, I think, is so far more savvy and advanced of putting together a CV and getting out and knowing who the people are potentially who you might be working with for the next 1 or 2 years. I think having that match to know that you're going to have the right mentorship in that time, and whether it is, like you mentioned, Mike, getting that degree, whether you're going to have the opportunity to get a degree in that time frame. Everyone's also studying for their boards, right out of residency for the most part. So I think those one-year fellowships are really hard. With the right combination and the right person, you can always get a lot out of it. But I do agree, if you really want that scholarship, you want to be able to publish, you want to get your master's degree, devoting a couple years to it really is probably way worth it in the short. It's a short-term investment, but a real long-term game. But you asked just making the application process and how do you make yourself shine. I think just knowing and understanding within yourself what your genuine interest is in doing this and really owning that, whatever it might be, and then just getting out there and talking to the different programs and making sure that that's a right fit for you, I really think makes the ideal candidate. Sim is different for different people as well. I think for me, one of the hardest things is learning, having to have learned politics and leadership. That's not really what I thought that I would have had to bring to the table. But simulation education is a very, very heavily political process. So you have to really learn some of those leadership skills. And all politics are local. So just getting out there and getting some of that experience, I think, helps send an applicant a long way as well. But finding the right mentorship, mentee, coupling, I think, is really important.
Building on that, I think it's experiential learning, right? Simulation is all about making mistakes and practicing. I think an applicant to shine has had to try simulation. You can't just, in my view, you can't just like it in theory. You might have liked it as a learner, but how do you really know that it's the modality, it's the way you want to change the world? So I'm looking for some real experience. You've taught something, you've designed something, you've worked with someone on a research project, but to me that's going to really separate people with an interest with people who have who really understand what it's about. So that I can think of off the top of my head, having done something is a real key feature.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so important, right? Irrespective of what job you're looking for, fellowship or otherwise coming out of residency, you're no longer allowed to say you're a pluripotent stem cell, right? You're not allowed to do that. You have to go in and say, this is the job I want to do, and whoever the employer is, if the employer doesn't need that role filled, then it's not a match in many ways, and you're not going to get hired. You're going to get hired to do the wrong thing, and you're going to be unhappy, and you're going to change your job, right? So you kind of, to Sharon's point, you really need to know what you want to do, but to Demian's point, how do you really know what you want to do unless you've done a little bit of it? So a little research, a little teaching, perhaps an elective the way that he did. I think all of those things are really important takeaways.
And I think I would say for applicants who are really interested in simulation is seek those opportunities to gain experience, right? As we're developing these fellowships and these programs, there are a myriad of opportunities for students and residents to get involved and try it out and see if they really want to utilize simulation in their futures.
All right, so my last question is going to go to Sharon, and it's about the interview day itself, right? So that causes lots of anxiety no matter what you're applying for. What should these candidates expect to be asked? Like, what does an interview day look like for a simulation fellowship interview? And then what should they be asking? If they're going to be critical and thoughtful about their selection of a program, what's sort of the need-to-know information that they should take home with them when they leave that interview day?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think just hopefully you have an expectation of what your day is going to be like, because we really do try to make it a full day of experience for what your life would be like if you were going to come and join us. We try to have interviews set up with interdisciplinary individuals throughout the institution, our nursing staff, our OBGYN department. We actually really like to bring our candidates in on days when we're very heavy into our simulations. We don't really throw them in to actually perform or do anything, although I'm sure that some people would actually take us up on that if we offered. But we love to have people come during our simulation meetings when we're talking about the different things that are going on from an academic standpoint. So it's a really full day. So those questions that they should ask, I think, because we're pretty diverse in what the different simulation fellowships offer, I really do think that a candidate should be asking questions like, why is your program unique? Who are the people that I would be working with the most closely day by day? What does set your fellowship apart from other programs? And what is my life going to be like as a junior faculty member? If you are going to be working in an emergency medicine fellowship, in an emergency medicine faculty setting, are you going to get a faculty appointment? Are you going to be teaching residents? Are you going to be working at the main site or at a community ED? There's so many questions I think to ask, but really, just like residency, knowing that you'd be happy spending your time there and it's a good fit with the people that you work with, and who am I going to be teaching? What kind of curriculum might you expect me to develop while I'm here? What kind of scholarship might I complete by the time I finish this program? What projects are you guys actively working on, and what's the publication? What have been the publication successes of previous fellows or the faculty that are here that I'm working with? Really getting to know who you're going to be spending your time with, I think, are the most important questions, and making sure that it's a right fit.
Great. I think, as Sharon was saying about that fit and the relationship in our application process, you're going to meet the rest of the team. So the front-end managers, the other directors, and I think, basically knowing that you'll fit in and contribute to the program in addition to getting an education is going to be a major criteria. I think you'll have to, as an applicant, you'll have to generate trust, that you can be a team player, that you're both there to learn and to help build the program. For example, our Sim Center is 4 years old right now, so you're really still coming in at a startup phase of an organization, and you're going to have a major impact. So we're looking for people with energy, people skills. And I should add, although we don't have a formal way of assessing this, excellent clinical skills are a must. I think it's certainly simulation is an area where you have to be a really strong clinician because you're going to be a leader and be an exemplar, and you have to speak from experience. So I wanted to add that. Maybe in the general education fellowship it might be okay, but in simulation you really have to be a strong and excellent clinician.
Not that Demian doesn't have strong feelings about that, I guess. So.
All right, Michelle, wow. Take us to the 30,000-foot sage wisdom that you always do at the end.
Yeah, you know what? I was just listening to this whole conversation, and I had a pondering thought. I'm intrigued by what Sharon mentioned, which is, there is a lot of politics that comes up, I think, in simulation more so than some other fellowships. And, you know how I like to lob grenades in on a whim to these panels, and without getting yourselves in trouble, what kind of politics might you be referring to? Go. See, no one's talking now.
No, it's people, power, money. We all work in businesses, and so I think the flip side of the bomb is that as emergency medicine physicians, we have a skill set that we can offer to a lot of different people. And from a leadership and simulation standpoint, we do cross every single discipline. So we have a skill set that many other healthcare providers don't have. We interface with everyone. We sometimes have to walk a few miles in everyone else's moccasins. So from that standpoint, we have a vantage point that's great. Again, when you're talking about, if you want to teach advanced airways and you're going to teach anesthesiologists how to do an emergency crike, and someone who's been teaching that for 5 years, perhaps gets upset, how dare you teach it and not involve them? I mean, that's simple politics, but inviting everybody to the table and just it's something I think I personally had to work with. We're used to identifying a problem, finding out a way to fix it, and doing it. But in simulation, I think you have to take the time to involve the stakeholders. It's important politics, I mean, so it goes very far. But you have to take the time to involve the stakeholders before you jump off on a path, because you'll learn a lot. Bill McGahey, who's a simulation leader and wonderful colleague and expert, has a saying, and he says that functional diversity... Say again?
He's here at Northwestern Simulation.
Indeed. Indeed he is. He left only for a short time and came right back like a rubber band. Yes, indeed. So one of his sayings I like to quote a lot is that functional diversity trumps talent every time. So when you bring different people together with...
Uh-oh, I think we might have...
I think the policy's got the best of Sharon.
That quote was so strong, it stopped all the internet.
Those who value talent sent in a drone and just zapped her.
I'd like to weigh in here because with a little bit of some theory, a little on that side of things, which is my take on why it gets a little political, Michelle, is that there's a couple of things going on in simulation. Number one, we're talking about error. So, that's a big area. We're assessing people's performance gaps and we're helping them improve. And so that gets people a little bit off the record. Your skills are on display. Number two, we're frequently asking experts to define and codify their everyday practice, which is a really heavy lift cognitively. And so it can be really exhausting to really work in those fields. And then number three, I think it's like we're frequently in those borderlands, which are the turf battles. So along the lines of what Sharon is saying, it's because we're representing the clinical environment. It kind of brings up all of the unresolved. This is like a little Freudian here, but it's all the unresolved conflict and needs of the clinicians kind of bubble up again anytime you get together to think about education. So everything she said and more.
And welcome back, Sharon. We lost you for a little bit there. We got you.
Okay.
And the quote is all that matters when it comes to Bill McGahey. That man is brilliant. But I think that what Sharon said earlier about money, right? This is a fixed resource at an institution. We built these big shiny sim centers at all our medical schools years ago, and no one knew how to turn, Demian calls them the dolls, I call them the robots. No one knew how to turn the robots on, but now we've trained a bunch of people across disciplines to turn the robots on, and they all want to turn the robots on. And I think, I'll say I've had the pleasure of working with Bill and the folks at Northwestern Simulation to review departments' proposals for how to use that fixed resource in a meaningful way. And no longer do you just get to say, like, I have a great idea, but you have to file a research proposal. Every department has to do this. They can demonstrate how you're going to track outcomes from the education that you're providing, and we score them like NIH grants. So, when you're considering this 1 versus 2 year fellowship thing, masters or not, I will say the departments are at a disadvantage that don't have a simulation, medical education, research sort of trifecta expert who's able to put together those proposals. You lose your time in this beautiful shiny sim center, which is a fixed financial resource for the school. The ones who get it are the ones who fill out the grant the right way.
I'm so sorry, but speaking of grenades and bombs, my child care situation just expired, so I'm going to have to be signing off. I really appreciate that you all invited me to join, and I hope to follow the conversation online.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Demian.
Thanks, Demian.
Bye.
Perfect. Let's now talk about Damian's site.
Okay, yes.
Demian just sent in a simulated robot to take his place for the rest of this podcast.
Right, for sure.
No, I think wonderful answer.
Yeah, Mike, I think your point is very well taken, though, as well. And it's one of my personal pet peeves in that so many schools have focused on the bricks and mortar and money donated to build shiny things. But that's one of the things I think that's a little bit different about our site. And I think the community that we're trying to put together here with these fellowships as well is that really it's education, it's faculty development and curriculum that really makes your program a success and gives you the ability to sustain whatever bricks and mortar you are that you survive in. So I think that point is very, very well taken. And knowing that you're going to have people around you in a fellowship who are going to help you achieve that status is incredibly important, because it's really hard. You can't do it on your own. So having that leg up with the politics, understanding and navigating the money side, the business side of education, I think is really huge. But I don't know, we can talk about some more exploding grenades, but Teresa hasn't said much lately, so more to the master.
I'm really good at avoiding grenades.
Really? I'm going to need some private tutoring and counseling then, because I'm not going to say online my nickname for myself, but I'm a bleep magnet. So
any of us just guessing. I was not going to allow that to happen. All right. Bleep. You've watched episodes before. I know how you're. All right. Michelle, other questions? What else?
Yeah, I just wanted to, not so much a grenade, but more a thought of, they're right now applying to get into Sim Fellowship, but the ultimate goal, the ultimate win is to get a job, right? And, compared to the other fellowships, which I think have a much longer track record, what is the job market like once you get out of this fellowship, whether it be 1 year or the 2-year fellowship? Like, where are your grads going? What's the future look like?
Well, what I really think is the biggest benefit of our simulation fellowships that we're running right now is that we are producing leaders, thought leaders, innovators, people that are really going to change the way we practice medicine. And the title of finishing a simulation fellowship isn't what they're earning, right? It's the experience and the skills that they're gaining that's going to help them be successful in life. So I think simulation is sometimes synonymous with, developing innovation in people, and our graduates are getting jobs in industry, in healthcare, in business leadership, in healthcare leadership, and most of them are just really good doctors who've taken their skills and used it to pay it forward.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more, and certainly residency director leadership, associate residency directors. Demian was able to secure his status at NISIM really just even after finishing his fellowship. And I get calls several times a year from people who are looking for qualified talent to run simulation centers. And I can guarantee you, as emergency medicine individuals, we are highly sought after for that skill set. Again, what I alluded to is that we can speak to the different disciplines in a way that a lot of other specialties can't. So a lot more people feel uncomfortable outside of their own comfort zone, where that's what we do every day, as we're always stepping into uncomfortable.
Perfect. No, that answers my questions. Mike, I hand it back to you.
We're going to close it out with our tradition for me, Match Advice, which is to give you guys a commercial for your fellowship program.
Okay.
So we're going to start with Teresa. The way that we do this is tell me something I don't know about the University of Arizona at Phoenix, your sim center and your sim program. Teresa.
So thank you for the opportunity to plug our new and innovative fellowship that we're developing. This is going to be our first year of a multidisciplinary interprofessional advanced medical technologies fellowship, where I combine my loves, which are ultrasound, simulation, education, and team building, into 1 year of basically hanging out with me and my team. So if anyone's interested in learning more about it, definitely Google me and we can talk more about it.
Well, I was going to say go Wildcats, but we're the Wildcats.
Yeah. You got to bleed blue and red.
Or something, but World T-Wu is outstanding. She was the chief a couple of years after me at Stanford and has always been, as described, she's got her hand in every pot and really lots of interest and lots of talents and skills to bring to that fellowship. It sounds exciting. So go check out the University of Arizona. And Dr. Griswold, please give us a little bit of information. Tell us something I don't know about Drexel University's SIM program.
Well, I echo what Teresa said, and I can't thank you and Michelle enough for having us on to do this program for people who may be interested in SIM fellowships. I would say that one of the unique things about our program is the opportunity to spend your time with a dedicated master's in simulation education. That's really where I've been spending a lot of my time now. So we've taken the core of what we felt a health professions educational master's program should be, and I've spent the last 5 years of my life turning that into a Master of Science in Medical and Healthcare Simulation, where we've been so fortunate to bring together those interdisciplinary simulation education leaders from all over the world together, and it's mostly online. So even if you don't come to our program, if you still had an interest in getting this great master's program, it's available for you. But we do offer it to our fellows for free. So I think we do offer a unique opportunity in that sense, and I have to say I think we continue to grow in simulation, and this just isn't a plug for my fellowship, but in general, I think simulation education really has the power to help us transform healthcare culture, and that's why we are doing what we're doing, because we want to make patients safer. We want to make health providers better at what they do. We want to give them the opportunity to learn in a safe environment and to make mistakes in a safe environment so that we don't make mistakes with patients. And I think that's why all of us do what we do. And so if that's one of the things that you may be interested in, then a simulation fellowship might be the right thing for you.
Yes, I'm glad you brought up that master's program. I remember seeing you guys advertise it for the first time a few years ago. And, I'll have these moments where I'll see these ads and think, well, should I just do something entirely different with my life? And for a moment, not a long moment, but for a moment I thought about it because I thought that master's looked so interesting and so different than all of the other masters of medical education out there. So, absolutely reflective of your visionary leadership in this area, Dr. Griswold, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think we have one of our faculty members works with you guys on that, right? Jeff Barsick comes out every now and again.
And Dr. McGahey as well, and someone who's unfortunately left you, Dr. Vozinelik, has also been instrumental and works with
graduate program down at OSF Peoria. Yep.
Yes.
So students or residents. Gosh, I did my students thing because I thought it was EMH. Residents, check out the Dragons at Drexel because they have got the market on cool master's degrees specifically for simulation. And one last plug, if you guys can do it for me because I'm really not knowledgeable about it, but there's a cool simulation in healthcare conference every January, and I think the residents in their second years and third years who are kind of considering a sim fellowship might really want to attend that conference. Can you guys give me the actual title? What is it? Society for
Simulation in Healthcare. This year in January, it's in San Diego. It's usually in a warm, wonderful place. So that meeting, or if you're attending SAEM, the Society for Simulation and Health, the Simulation Academy of SAEM, again, I think as Teresa said, we all travel in the same circles and we know each other, but get out there, reach out, make contact, talk to the simulation person in your own institution because we can all help point you in the right direction as well. IMSH is a wonderful meeting to attend because it really, we go to ASAP or SAEM, and we're all around emergency medicine physicians. The great thing about IMSH is it really is every discipline. It's surgeons, it's OBGYNs, it's nurses, it's PhD educators, so bringing that talent together was something that's been very unique for me to experience. So how about you, Teresa? What do you think that is the best way for people to reach out and get to know people?
I agree with you, Sharon. I think all of you should come meet us at IMSH, and I think Michelle and Mike and Sharon and I'll buy you guys a drink on the beach. So come meet us out, Come learn and hang out with us.
That sounds wonderful.
Thanks to Teresa and Sharon for joining us, and Demian, who's now taking care of his kids in another room. And thank you.
Can I interrupt, actually? Can I be Demian for a second?
Awesome.
And pitch his program, because I feel a little bad now that he left.
Nice him.
I don't know.
You have to slow your voice down.
And I don't know how to speak so low. But he has NYSIM, New York Simulation. I'm just reading the site here, but if you go to nysimcenter.org, it's got a great website. Read all about it. It's an urban center that started in 2011, and it's impressive. Take a look. That's all I know about it.
One more plug for Demian as well. He did start a community for simulation fellows as well, and so last year they had their first annual meeting, and I know that that meeting is going to be in April. So sometime in April. It's a one-day fellowship. Again, a great opportunity if you have the ability to go to New York for a day and get to know everyone, and we will get you connected.
All right, well, Dr. Lin, thank you so much for hosting the pilot of our spinoff, the Match Fellowship Advice. I think it was a great pilot. I'm sure that we're going to be renewed because we have 2 scheduled for next week. So thank you guys very much, and look for more fellowship advice on Alien. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye.